Hi, Jiaobin. So let's take a look at this set of essays today. People are becoming dependent on the internet and phone. So let's see what you said about that. The issue of people's increasingly heavy dependence on the internet and smartphone has been a topic of debate throughout the developing and developed world. Although there are some positive impacts, I believe firmly that this phenomenon has more drawbacks than benefits. This essay will analyze both sides using examples from Modern Math and Oxford to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, so far so good. On the one hand, there is ample, you don't mean avoidance, you mean ample evidence that one's life becomes more convenient with the assistance of the internet and smartphone. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, the connection between people has been drastically enhanced. Okay, all right, we'll talk about it in a minute. Nowadays, people can talk to each other at any time and anywhere. It is impossible to do that without the advent of the information and communication technology. Secondly, people are able to overcome their challenges more easily, especially for those with disabilities. For example, the application called Modern Math can help people who are suffering from dyslexia and dysgraphia to learn mathematics effectively. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that there is a case to justify the dependence on this new technology. All right, I wanted to read through the entire paragraph to make sure that in fact, we're talking about dependence on these technologies and not just, the benefits of them. You did mention the word dependent at the end, but quite frankly, I don't think it's enough. You needed to argue in favor of dependence throughout the entire paragraph, okay? One mention of dependence is not enough. So, you obviously here you meant evidence. And then, again, when you talk about the connection has become enhanced, that's just a positive of this technology. That's not explaining why the dependence is positive. Do you understand the difference? I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. We want to talk about the fact that this dependence is positive, not the technology itself. Okay? So here it's not really clear. And then you support, this benefit, but again, you're not supporting you didn't argue the right thing. And then, let's see, people are able to overcome their challenges more easily, especially for those with disabilities. People are suffering learn mathematics effectively. Okay, so the grammar, the vocabulary, all that was fine, although there was this one section that I thought was a little awkward. Where was that? The application can help people who are suffering from dyslexia and dysgraphia to learn mathematics effectively. No, it's fine. So I didn't really have a problem with any of the grammar, any of the vocabulary, but like I said, you needed to talk about the positives of this dependence. So you're probably wondering, well, what on earth could a positive of this dependence be? Well, think about situations where we are absolutely dependent on this kind of technology, okay? So, for example, look at what we're doing here. You're preparing for IELTS through the internet, okay? So, and you're dependent on it. So perhaps there aren't IELTS tutors in your area, or, perhaps you get more, so you depend on the internet in order to prepare you for IELTS. All right, that could be one way to argue it. Or, take it from the other side, people who work through the internet, okay? Or work, using their phones. Think about like call centers. They're absolutely dependent on the telephone in order to gain their livelihood, all right? And the same thing for people who work over the internet. So, those are ways that you could say that this dependence is a good thing in the sense that these people earn their livings and they, even can create careers thanks to these technologies. And therefore, yeah, of course, they're absolutely dependent on them. All right. It has opened a whole new avenue of occupations. Okay. So these are some of the things just to give you some ideas about what you could have said are the benefits of this, of this technology. And when you talk about jobs being created, well, that just, brings to it a whole host of advantages, like, more jobs, lower unemployment, maybe more tax money for the government, okay? So these are just some things that you could have mentioned as positives, but let's move on. On the other hand, if human beings continue, get rid of this S here, you don't grow your reliance. So if human beings continue to increase their reliance, singular, on the internet, smartphones, and tablets, there would be serious consequences individually and socially. To begin with, the development of a range of abilities could be significantly delayed. For instance, recent empirical research carried out by Oxford University, without that "the," shows that a child's ability in communication will decrease by 20% if he or she spends 10 hours a week on social media. Furthermore, one word furthermore, our society might witness a higher unemployment rate. Okay, it's the exact opposite of what I just said. It is predicted that employment opportunities in service sectors will decline a lot as people are more likely to use their phones to get served. All right, well, you could have talked about that as a positive, okay? Consequently, it is possible to state beyond doubt that the constantly growing reliance on the internet and computing devices will hinder humans' development and endanger well-being. Okay. Trying to think of reliance. All right, remember, now here when you're talking about a child, are you implying to us that a child relies on this technology? You have to make that clear. It's not just the positives or the negatives of using these technologies, but again, the dependence on it. What is a negative associated with that? Okay, so you can see here that dependence is really your key word here, and it's important that you include it and carry that throughout your essay. So let's see. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that the detrimental implications of this trend outweigh the advantages, and individuals should learn to use the information and communications technology wisely. Okay, I mean, that's fine. That's general enough, but I think I've made my point about how important it is to use that keyword and to really carry the idea of that keyword throughout the entire essay. All right? So let's move on to your pie chart here. I want to do a quick word check. You're probably around 150 words. Around, yep, 152. So let's see what you wrote. The pie chart demonstrates the popularity of 7 German school subjects in the year 2017. It is clear that PE was the most popular subject among German students in the given year. All right, full stop here. There were nearly 23% of students nominating it as their favorite subject. All right, I don't like whereas here. You could have said, however, IT was the least popular one, with only 3.7 pupils enjoying it. History had a similar performance to IT in popularity. Here, you could have said, where there were approximately 22.5% of students liking it most. You see, you need some sort of a linker here. A comma isn't enough. It is interesting to notice that the popularity of natural sciences subjects varied a lot. While 19.5 and 18.1% of the participants preferred mathematics and physics respectively, only around 7% of them thought biology classes were attractive. Another subject which was less than 10% in terms of popularity was geography. To summarize, German students liked PE classes best, followed by history and mathematics. At the same time, only a few of them liked IT, geography, and biology classes. All right, I thought you did a nice job. It was good. It was good. The grammar was good. The vocabulary was good. You had a lot of nice synonyms for things like popularity, this idea of popularity, attractive, popular, and so forth. So that was really good. You did everything right here in terms of an introduction. You had an overview. For you, it was really a conclusion, not really an overview, but it's fine. And then you included all the information. I liked that you had some contrast. I liked that you started with the highest and then went to the lowest, and then, you did some other things here. You could have done a little more in terms of comparison. I like what you did, like I said. But let's see. You talked about, for example, here, you said 23% of students, whereas only 3.7. All right, well, tell me, what kind of a difference is that? You could have said like 7 times less. Or, you know, when you talk about biology, you could say that this is only 1/3 of the popularity of PE. Or you could have said this is less than half the popularity of physics. So you could have made comparisons like this, because all you really did was just like point out the percentages. But what you do when you kind of make this sort of comparison is, number one, well, obviously you're comparing, and then number two, you're really kind of emphasizing just how big these differences are. You know, because it's one thing to say, oh, this is 18.1%, but this is 7.1%. And it's something entirely different when you say that of these two sciences, while they made up around 25% of the popularity of physics was was twice as much as that of biology. So you see, you're really giving it some emphasis and a little more detail, really. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that you want to start doing when you have these kinds of charts where there's not a ton of information. I mean, you only have 7 pieces of data here. So that's something I want you to think about. When you have a diagram that has a lot of data, then no, you have to do different things. You have to you have to combine, you have to edit, you have to group things together. But here you need to kind of extend in order to really develop this answer. Otherwise, it just sounds like very straight, very mechanical reporting. You know, like this is 22.4, this is 22.9, this is 19.5, this is 18.1, and that gets, like I said, rather mechanical, and you want to avoid that. Okay? So go ahead and correct these. Let's see them corrected. Let's see what you will write for us the next time. We'll be waiting for it, so go ahead and get started. Good luck.